Hello, I'm Megan. This is the Busybug Homestead and we are standing in my seed room. I put the seed room together last season on a video. I'll try and link it in the description. But today we are actually not talking specifically about the room. We're talking about all the ways I failed my poor little seedlings last year because almost all of them either died when they were only a couple of inches tall, not dampening off because they actually were putting on true leaves and they were growing and they were doing fantastic and everything was great. And then they died, or they went out into the garden and somehow ended up shocked and never really produced well. So today I'm going to talk about why I think that happened and how I plan on changing it this season. The number one reason I think that I had the hardest time in this room, and the reason why I think I got a bacterial infection, which I believe, if I have done my research correctly, should have actually been the black leaf spot, because that's pretty much what it looked like, which I know you can get on houseplants. But if I'm correct and that happened and that's what I was dealing with last year, most likely my biggest problem was airflow in this room. I had fans in this room. I had one on the floor. It was just a little fan that was circulating, and I had another little one on the other side of the room. It wasn't enough. They weren't strong enough, and I did not have enough airflow. As you can see behind me, like the way I'm running the plant trays here, they are going long ways back toward the wall. So there was not enough airflow getting into my shelves. I have corrected that problem hopefully this year by adding a very large fan on the wall that is oscillating and blowing a much higher strength air on these shelves. I'm also going to be placing that same little fan that I had from last year, the small oscillating fan, on the other side of the room, so I'm getting airflow from both directions. That's how I'm going to correct the airflow issue this year. Hopefully that helps. Next thing I'm pretty sure was a big problem for me last year was the temperature in this room. We're in the basement. My basement stays really cold. It's not heated, but I do have a little floor heater on the floor keeping this room warm. Right now, it's set to 82 degrees in here. And I have this little thermometer. I have this little thermometer set. It's at 82. The reason it's at 82 is because I have not had the fan on all day. If I have the fan on and I have the heater on, it stays about 75 in here, which is exactly what I want it to stay at. But last year, my issue was it was getting too hot. The fan wasn't strong enough to kind of regulate the heater. I was not getting the alarms from that at night because my phone was not telling me that the heat was going up over where it was supposed to go. So this time around, I've got this set. I've got extra loud alarms on my phone so that I can actually hear it if it goes over 75, and I will be able to change the temperature accordingly. With that fan going, which I don't have on right now because obviously you would not be able to hear me if it was on, it is very loud, and the heater on, it stays at that really nice 75 temperature, and the humidity stays high enough. Right now we're sitting at 36% humidity. These plants are still just soil at this point. There's no green growing on most of them. I do have two little pea plants. I think they're the Thai blue that have already come up, but I don't have the humidity up that high in this room yet. So I'm not really worrying about it at the moment, but I will be watching it as soon as I have high humidity, the high heat, the seedlings all going crazy and producing like crazy. I will be watching every single day to make sure I'm not getting another bacterial wilt and that I have enough airflow. The next thing I think was a big problem for me was I was taking my plants out of this room, which was being kept at around 75, 80, through an ice cold basement into a very cold bathroom to water my plants so that I wouldn't have to haul water back and forth to this room. I'm pretty sure that is why I had issues with stunting. My peppers, for the first time ever, I've been growing peppers for years. First time ever, my peppers didn't produce the way that I'm used to them producing. And I have a feeling it's because I was taking them into that ice cold basement that was like maybe at most 40 degrees out of this 80 degree room, and that caused problems for them. So this year I'm watering everything in this room. I will haul buckets of water. I will do what I need to do. There's a window right here. I can bring the hose up to here and just bring the hose in here. It's a cement floor. I'm not worried about it. But I will not be taking my seedlings out of this room until it's time to harden them off. Just in case that might have been my issue with the stunting. I know it wasn't my issue with the bacterial black spot, whatever that was, but it definitely, I feel like it was the problem with the stunting of my plants. All right, and the last thing that I think was a problem last year was my fertilizer. Now, I've been using the Alaska Fish fertilizer for a couple of years now for my seedlings, and I typically don't have any issues, but last year, it seemed like it was burning the roots of my plants, and I do it at a quarter strength, but I don't know if maybe it was because I had changed the type of potting soil I was using, I wasn't using, like this is what I use now. This is what I'm using now. I mean, it's pretty standard. It's coconut coir. But I think last year I was using peat moss, and I don't know if it was just the way that the moisture was staying in the core or what, but when I would fertilize them, I would notice they would do really well for like the first day, and then all of a sudden they would start to kind of like look like their roots were struggling. So I'm going to be fertilizing differently this year because the fish fertilizer is fine, but I'm going to try using this Good Dirt plant food right here. Because I did use this the one year, I wasn't able to find it last year anywhere. I looked everywhere for it, and I didn't want to buy it online. So when I say I looked everywhere, I mean I looked everywhere in person. I couldn't find it. I found it this year. I grabbed it early. I'm going to be using this because I love this. I love what it does for my plants. I love how healthy my plants look when I use it. But I'll be using this exclusively, and I will not be using the fish fertilizer this year because last year everything died. And so I'm just trying to change everything. So I'm not using those little bricks that they're like the compressed core, the compressed peat, and you put the water on it, it expands to a big bucket of soil. I'm not using that this year. I'm using the bag I just showed you. And I'm not using the fish fertilizer. I am going to be using the Good Dirt fertilizer. I'm not going to be watering in the cold room. I'm going to be watering in this room with my maintained temperature. And I am not going to be using low amounts of air. I'm going to have a pretty high, powerful fan going on in this room. The last thing that I am going to be changing is I am not starting as early as I did last year. I think that starting last year, I started mid-February for mostly everything, and normally that's fine, but we had a very cold entry into spring. And normally by Mother's Day, I'm putting things out and I'm not worrying about it. This last year wasn't the case. It was still cold around Mother's Day. It was still cold as we were going up in June, like not frigid freezing, but still too cold for peppers and tomatoes. So this year I'm just gonna play it safe because we have a really long summer, and I am going to start things a little bit later. I have stuff going on back here right now. I have onions, and I have the little mini roses are already started because those take a little bit longer. My lavender seeds are in the fridge still. I know that those are not going to go in the ground this year. I'm gonna probably grow those on until late fall. So I'm not worried about starting those late at all. And then I have my coleus already back here in this tray here. And I also have my peppers and tomatoes started over here. I started them later than I have ever started them before. Normally I start them in the beginning of February because winter's hard for me. I grew up in a very sunny place. I grew up in Southern California. I lived in Florida for a couple of years. I don't like winter. Winter is great for like the first couple of weeks, and then I'm over it and I'm ready for my nice sunny weather to come back. So when the sun's gone and it's this gloomy and cold, I need something nice and lush and green, and that's what I do with this room. I completely fill it with seedlings. By February, I am craving all of the growing green, beautiful life. So I always start too early. This time around, I'm not starting too early. I'm just kind of slowing down, and we are going to just let it happen. So we're about to come into March. I do already have my stuff started. I just started this stuff. I'm about to start some of my other stuff that said, 8 to 12 weeks, somewhere in that range. I'm about to start that stuff. Our last frost is April. I want to say our last frost is supposed to be April 25th. I am not sticking to that date. I'm going to go into May before I start putting stuff out because I'm assuming it's going to be cold because we've had a very mild winter, but we've had a nice chilly winter. I'm assuming we're going to go cold into May. So I'm playing it safe. So that's pretty much what I've got going on. That is what I think went wrong last year, and that is how I plan on changing it. If you have any questions, if you have anything you recommend for growing seeds indoors and you want to let me know about it, pop it in the comments. I am always happy to hear what you have to say, and we will see you next time. Bye.